There's a reason World War I is often called the birthplace of modern survival. It wasn't the clean, organised conflict many expected in 1914. It was a brutal grind that forced soldiers, medics, engineers and scouts to innovate faster than at any time before. What came out of those trenches wasn't just strategy or political realignment. It was practical tools, real physical gear that shaped how humans prepare, adapt and survive today. If you're a history buff or a survival-minded viewer, the Great War becomes a treasure trove of origins. And you know, the deeper you look, the more you realise that some of the gear we treat as modern outdoor essentials actually began in mud, gas clouds and desperate improvisation more than a century ago. For the next few minutes, walk with me through the tools World War I gave us, not as museum pieces, but as living items still in use. These aren't relics. They're the backbone of survival kits, wilderness gear, and military packs around the world. And understanding where they came from helps you appreciate how far the design has evolved, and more importantly, how you can apply their original principles today. So let's get into it. 7 survival tools World War I invented that we still rely on every day. The modern gas mask began as a trench necessity and remains a core survival tool today. Before 1915, protective breathing gear barely existed. When chlorine gas rolled across the Ypres front, soldiers were caught with nothing but rags soaked in urine. That primitive trick quickly evolved into chemically treated pads, and then into the first recognizable respirators with replaceable filters. Today's gas masks, whether civilian or military, still use the same core system: filtration seal and airflow control. For practical use today, this background reminds you why maintaining a good seal and checking filter dates matters. If you're dealing with smoke from wildfires, toxic spills, or industrial accidents, you're essentially using a perfected version of what came out of those first desperate trench experiments. The entrenching tool, became a soldier's lifeline and is now a universal survival staple. Folding shovels existed in crude forms before, but the First World War, that turned them into essential multi-purpose tools. A soldier needed to dig fast, often under fire, and needed a shovel compact enough to carry everywhere. The modern trifold entrenching tool actually traces directly back to these designs, keeping the same principle: one tool that digs, hammers, scrapes, cuts, and, in extreme cases, even defends. For survivalists today, the application is pretty straightforward. Whether you're building quick drainage trenches around a tarp shelter, creating a fire pit, or clearing debris after a storm, you're applying the same lessons that made the entrenching tool a battlefield necessity. The steel helmet, transformed from an experimental item to a universal protective tool. When the French introduced the Adrian helmet in 1915, many commanders still believed shrapnel couldn't be stopped by headgear. Within months, casualty data proved them wrong. Britain adopted the Brodie, Germany the Stahlhelm, and protective headgear became absolutely non-negotiable. The helmets worn today by rescue teams, construction workers and militaries all descend from World War I's shift toward shaped steel protection. Even in civilian survival settings, the principle holds, Protecting the skull from falling debris during earthquakes, storms, or collapsed structures is a direct continuation of what World War I taught. Survival starts with safeguarding the head. Portable first aid kits took their modern form on the Western Front. Field medics before World War I carried equipment, sure, but standardized personal first aid kits were rare. The scale of trench injuries forced armies to issue compact kits to every soldier, containing bandages, disinfectants, tourniquets and wound dressings in a logical order. If you carry a modern IFAK, you're using a World War I invention refined over a century. Even the concept of self-applied bandaging under stress started here. A practical takeaway today is the importance of layout. Medics learned that gear must be organized by priority, something worth applying whether you're treating cuts in the woods or handling emergencies far from help. The trench lighter, really established the blueprint for what we think of as modern windproof lighters. Back then, cigarettes, letters, lanterns, and even stoves all needed a reliable flame, but with heavy winds and rain, fire was anything but dependable. So soldiers started modifying casings, using bits of brass scraps and cotton wicks to create these durable, wind-resistant lighters. This eventually led to designs like the Zippo, which, interestingly enough, still uses that basic wind-shielded chimney and fuel-soaked wick system first seen in World War I. For survivalists today, the lesson from those trenches is really quite simple. Redundancy. Troops learn to always carry match backups, spare flints, and extra fuel. Nowadays, keeping a stormproof lighter, a ferro rod and waterproof matches is the same principle that kept those trench soldiers from being left in the dark. Water purification tablets? Well, they actually originated from efforts to stop disease among troops. More soldiers in World War I died from illness than bullets early in the conflict, especially in places like the Balkans and the Middle East, where water contamination was a serious problem. So, chemists developed portable chlorine tablets, which quickly reduced disease rates and honestly saved countless lives. Those tablets survive today as one of the simplest ways to make unsafe water drinkable during expeditions or emergencies. Understanding this origin helps you use them correctly. You've got to give them time to work, shake your container to distribute the agent, and always filter sediment first. These are the same practical steps medics insisted on a century ago. Duct tape's early ancestor was World War I's military fabric tape, designed for emergency repairs. While the modern name duct tape came decades later, the concept began with strong, waterproof fabric tape issued for sealing equipment, patching vehicles, and reinforcing gear in the field. The American military later refined it, but the World War I version already performed the basic job-fast, flexible structural repair when nothing else was available. In practical survival terms today, this history explains why tape remains indispensable. It reinforces shelters, repairs torn boots, patches canoes, and even closes emergency bandages. Every modern prepper, camper and mechanic is borrowing directly from early 20th century field engineering. These 7 tools aren't just war inventions. They're proof that innovation under pressure creates solutions that last for generations. Whether you're studying the Great War or building your own survival kit, understanding the origins gives you a deeper respect for the gear you rely on today. If you want more deep-dive history like this, subscribe to Warpaths of Europe and share this guide with someone who appreciates serious, research-driven storytelling.